Hey everybody, what's up? My name is Desiree, and you are listening to God Applied. And today, I want to talk about God's plan, because oftentimes God's plan is not what I have planned all the time. And quite honestly, if things were going according to my plan, literally, I would still be on a plane right now from LA to Tokyo, preparing to serve the Olympic Games. But everything that's going on in the world, I'm realizing that it's God's plan, and it's not my plan. You know, this is an opportunity I've, wanted for quite some time. And there's been a lot of ups and downs and a lot of things emotionally that have happened in this process to try to get there, But with all of that being said, it's an experience that is going to be delayed, right? They're going to be happening in July of 2021. But, it just really made me start to think about God's plan. And talking about God's plan, once again, I can't help but evaluate where I am in life, right? And first of all, guys, I don't know if it's just me, but I am just a really deep thinker. And so I'm like very emotional. So I internalize a lot. So anytime, kind of a big milestone or something happens in life, like I am that person who, like, I evaluate my whole life, like where am I in life, and what am I doing? And matter of fact, have you guys ever heard of the quarter life crisis that happens at 25, where you like evaluate everything and you're like, what am I doing with my life? I had my crisis early, right? I had mine at 21 while I was still in college. And I can remember being on my bed and crying like, I'm 21 and what am I doing with my life? And I don't know. I'm not where I thought I would be. I thought things were going to be different. Why? Because I had such a buildup, in my mind of expectations about like what 21 is going to look like. Right. And so I kind of had this crisis, like, am I where I'm supposed to be? Am I where, like I was technically still in college doing everything that I was supposed to do. But yeah, I had my little life evaluation crisis a little early. So by the time 25 rolled around, like I was good. I was better. But I oftentimes evaluate where I am in life. And as I look at where I am in life right now, I am currently 31 years old and I'm living at home. And that's not always an easy thing to say, because it's not something that most people would look at and be like, oh yeah, I'm proud of you, right? It's not necessarily a badge of honor to wear. But it's nothing that I'm ashamed of, because I'm learning that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And before deciding to do this episode, I actually did some research, because I think it's one thing if I tell you like, oh yes, I'm confident and where I'm supposed to be, yeah, that just might be my personal feelings, and yeah, I don't know. I could be lying. I could not be happy where I am, but I really am. But I wanted to give you some statistics to put some numbers out there, because I think it's important to realize what's going on in life right now, not just for myself, but around me. And so I looked into some stats, and it actually said that now, more than any other time in history, people are living with their parents, or they're living at home. They're living with a loved one, someone. And the age range for young adults ranges from the ages of 22 to the age of 37. I was even a little surprised by that number, and older. And quite honestly, when I kind of begin to think about people that I know, that is true. I know a lot of people who have, gotten married and have families and things like that. But I actually know a lot of people who are living with a loved one or with a family member. And I did some more research, and I was curious, like, okay, what is the reason for this? Because for me, honestly, when I see like a trend in my own life, but I also see a trend and a pattern in my other friends, I'm like, okay, God, this must be significant. If there seems to be kind of a vein or a line or a population or demographic of people who are experiencing this. They actually said that the number one reason as to why people were either still at home or moved back home within those age ranges was because of heartbreak. right? So failed relationships. So some of these people, what they're saying about these people in this time, in this season, who have actually moved back home, these people, in the majority of instances, are educated people. They have their own jobs, they make their own money, have been in committed relationships, may not still be in committed relationships, but they have, you know, degrees in a lot of instances. So they're educated people. They're people who have their own jobs. But there is just, for some reason, they haven't transitioned, or they've transitioned back into a household that is of support. And they said the number one reason is heartbreak. But beyond that, I think that we could go into a lot of other. I have to be honest. I chatted with someone before this, and they were like, you know what? I agree with that. And they had their opinions, and I'm not going to share their full opinions, but their reason was that maybe part of it was that maybe generations before us, when it came to actually coming into the workforce, they didn't necessarily leave the best setup for this next generation coming in. I can't say whether I agree with that or disagree with that. I think there are parts of that I agree. But at the same time, there's also individual responsibility, right? But at the end of the day, I think we're still looking at people, like we're saying, like these people have jobs. These people are working. These people are fully employed. These people are educated. But for some reason, there's still a large population that is just back home. And guess what? I am one of those people. And so as I kind of think about, you know, on today where I could be right now and I'm not there, it just makes me once again kind of have a moment where I just reevaluate where I am. And does anybody else do that? All right. Like I said, my quarter life crisis I had at 21. And I guess at one point in time, I was like, oh, because I didn't know quarter life crisis was a thing. And then when I heard it was a thing, I was like, oh, I had mine early. That must mean, you know, I'm ahead of the game. I'm evaluating where I'm supposed to be and the plans that I have and what I want to do. And I'm just realizing that my plans are not God's plans, because ultimately me being a person that says, you know, God, I want your plan for my life. And with that, I'm also hoping to have his favor and the wealth and the prosperity and, you know, the godly ideals, all those things. I want all those things. And so in trading, you know, my plan for his plan, things just have not always gone, I would say as planned, but the question is whose plan? As I plan a lot of times. And, yeah. Like I said, I expected to be on my way to Tokyo, excited about this opportunity and everything that I was getting ready to do. And the opportunity is still going to happen. But as I just take the time to think about, you know, this season of life, and while I can say I'm proud of where I am, because I can really see where I am and I can really see what I'm doing. But sometimes it's really hard to be 100% secure in that 100% of the time, right? In most instances, I really don't have a problem with it. And I understand and I see the benefits of it. But then there are other moments and it's like, okay, hey, am I really progressing in life if I'm here? You know, and honestly, I am learning that every time I try to step outside of this zone, and trust me, I have worked in different states and I travel a lot. Like, as a matter of fact, every month this year up until September, I think with the exception of the month of June, I was going to be traveling like at least once a month. Right. And I wasn't traveling in June because I was going to be preparing for July and August, and I was supposed to be at the Olympic Games, right? So for me, this year was packed with travel. Like it was both for business and for pleasure. Like I'm traveling, I'm having fun, I'm doing what I want to do. Like I'm taking control of my life, all those things, right? And I'm able to make these things happen. And by the grace of God, I'm able to make these things happen. Right. And, you know, COVID hits, and it was just kind of a season and a time where God is just like, yep, Be still. But for me, like, honestly, this has actually been a really good time, but I recognize that being home and being in this season is so intentional. Like, it is intentional that I am here. Right? It's intentional that I work from home. Like, I'll be honest, I am very much an entrepreneur, right? So I have some businesses and I have some jobs, and I have recently acquired another opportunity to work at a university. But guess what? Even this opportunity is like, oh yeah, well, you can teach from home, right? You can do this. Like, everything that I do is almost requiring me to literally be home and be present in, like, my house and my space on top of COVID, right? And that's multiple opportunities when I have the chance to speak or I get to work from clients. And, I thank God for that kind of flexibility. And in one sense, I guess I've always prayed that, right? I have prayed like, okay, God, even to the place where when I get married, like, I want to be able to balance home, life, marriage, kids, and my profession. Right? I want to be able to have, when I want to be able to go, I want to be able to do that and travel, but I want my family to be my first ministry, all that kind of stuff when that comes into play. Right? But I kind of have that now. I kind of have the ability to work with the flexibility, make my own schedule. It's a little different because I'm doing it from my parents' home. Right? And so a lot of times it's like, okay, well, is it just as valuable because I'm doing it from here as it would be if I just went and got my own place, right? But once again, I am literally recognized that in this season, like, this is the place that I am supposed to be. Every time I attempt to try to leave and do something else, literally, there's just something that pulls me back in. I can recall one instance where I was actually in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I was working with a professional team out there, and I just felt him. I knew that once I had got there and I had got settled, that I wasn't supposed to be there. And it was only a short amount of time before I ended up coming back. Not that I couldn't make it work, but I recognized that God's hand of favor wasn't on that. For that season and that time in my life, and that this is where I was supposed to be. And maybe that's, anybody who knows a little bit about my family scenario and, supporting my parents in ministry, but also helping to raise these two amazing little boys, and really falling in and claiming and loving that role that, it's important for me to be home right now. But when I think about my personal life and what that does for me, and a lot of people asking me, well, okay, how does this affect your life? Or what are you doing? And honestly, I'm just like, you know what? It's God's plan. And I mean it when I say it. And there obviously are different times and different stages of my life that I'm like, you know what? No, this is not easy. And I don't love the perception of this or how this looks. And, but here's the thing. I've recognized that there's growth taking place in me, that if sometimes all of those other demands were on me, it would distract me from the growth that I'm having in this season. Because when you are juggling different responsibilities, your growth is different. And just in all honesty, like I said, I'm noticing this trend in a lot of people, a lot of my friends, male and female. And most of these people genuinely, like I said, they're educated, they have jobs, they're contributing to the household in some significant way. So even if it's financially, even if it's not financially, they're still contributing to that household, either emotionally or supportively in some very significant way. And I'm like, God, okay, why is there this population of people that you have carved out and almost intentionally have hidden? Right. So for me, I've asked God this a lot. I'm like, God, why do you have me hidden in this season? Like, I'm trying to break out, and are you helping me or not? But I'm genuinely like, God, I feel like you have me in hiding. Right. So even when I am in rooms with big people and great people, and guys, realistically, like, so even when I'm just like, okay, I'm done with this. Like, I am done trying to pursue this avenue and this path of, sports and sports ministry and building this and entrepreneurs and, working at these high levels, even when I'm just like, okay, God, it's not working. So this must not be what you want, right? So even when I get attitude and I'm ready to throw my hands up in the air, let me tell you what God does, right? I don't care. Like, I don't care what it is I do or I try to apply for, right? Like, kid y'all not. I was ready to throw everything out the window. And I was like, all right, look, I just need a temporary job right now. I'm going to apply for the airport, right? Everybody gets hired at the airport. I can't even get hired at the airport. I don't care what the job is or what it is I try to do. I'm like, listen, I have a master's. I'm overqualified, but I don't even put all that information down. I make my application look appropriate for the job I'm applying for. And that's just an example. Like, I don't care what it is or what I do. God is like, no, this is where you're supposed to be. And so I'm like, okay, well, there must be something that I'm supposed to get out of this season because, God wants me in this vein. Even when I have tried to just say, you know what, God, I give up. You got to help me figure out what is my different career path because, in trying to pursue this career path, my feelings have gotten hurt a whole lot. But yet when I try to step out and just throw my hands up and do something else, you pull me right back to it. And what I'm realizing it is because I'm not trying to do it God's way. I'm still trying to do it my way. And it's just been the ebb and flows and the hits that I've taken along the way that have really got me frustrated. And as I started to think about some of the failures and rejections and opportunities that I've had and that I've lost in my time, in my season, within the last few years, God brought a scenario to my heart and to my mind of a scenario where someone just didn't do what they said they were going to do, right? But when they didn't do what they said to do, it left me in a really hard spot, out of a lot of money, and has affected me for quite a while because, I put money into it. I was building this. I was doing that. And God just kind of brought that person to my heart, and I started praying for them. And as I started praying for them, I said, God, I don't know what it is that they were dealing with that caused them to kind of act the way that they did. And in one sense, I realized that they were kind of in over their head as well, and maybe couldn't admit to some things. And maybe that's why things turned out the way they did. But it's like, God, as I start praying, I was like, well, God, honestly, I genuinely am at the place. Like, I remember praying a prayer one time and I said, God, don't change my dreams. Don't change my passions. Like, I want them, just don't change them. Don't change them. And I was like, God, if I don't even want what I want enough, help me to want them more. Like as bad as I want them, endue me with extra strength to want them more. Right. But I am genuinely at a place right now where my heart says, God, I don't care what changes because I have seen enough to know. And that's the thing. I think a lot of people, if you haven't seen God work enough to know, then there's going to be a gap there for you, right? You're going to just say, well, I don't know, right? But I have seen enough to know, but I've also tried him enough to know that what God has planned for me is bigger. It's so much bigger. Like I said, even with this thing being canceled with the Olympics, right? I know it's going to happen, and even the setup for it, I believe is going to be so much better. And I can't wait to tell you guys about it when it actually does. Even though there was so much turmoil and stuff that happened to even get this opportunity, there were still so many doors that God was like, will you just trust me in the process? And so I'm at a place where God, okay, I've seen enough to know that I can trust you and this is your plan. And I genuinely feel like I am the poster child for, you guys heard that saying, God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called, right? So here's the thing. Everything that I feel like I'm qualified to do, God just seems to be like, nope, this is not an option. Everything I'm overqualified to do, nope, not an option. He only seems to want to open those doors that I feel like I don't feel qualified for. He's like, yep, that's the one. I'm gonna need you to go after that one right there. You feel not ready. You feel not prepared. You're a little scared. You feel inadequate. Yep. This is the spot for you. And I'm like, God, why? Like, here's the thing. Like, I dream big. My dreams are big enough that I'm like, God, you can work with this. This is not a small, just, take it or leave it type dream. Like, this is a big dream, right? When we talk about saving the world, like, I'm literal, right? So I'm like, my dreams are big. Like, if you just do what I'm talking about, like, this is impactful, right? And God's like, yeah, no. And so even in this season of my life, like, I'm just recognizing that God's plans, like, he has me here for a reason. And I can't, and there are things that I can gather specifically to say, okay, I'm in the home specifically because I'm supposed to be doing this, I'm supposed to be doing this. But there's also, a covering in this season of time as I am growing through the stages that he's putting me on, and he's plucking me off, and he's putting me here and he's putting me there. And quite honestly, with the way he's doing things in my life and the opportunities, and I say this all the time, like, God literally takes me from my basement to like the Olympics. Like, that's how God likes to work with me. And he's like, if you weren't preparing in that season, in that time, that's on you, but you're coming from here to this stage. And so be ready. Don't just think that time in between was just for you to chill and have a bad attitude, right? And so I'm recognizing that being where I am, there's grace, and it's intentional because I'm supposed to be preparing in this season for something. But I'm also at a place that I realize that everything that I prepare to do, I genuinely want it to be pleasing to God. Right? Because I've definitely gone through a process, in my athletics and in my talents, realizing that those things have to be given back to God and used as worship to him, right? I've gone through those stages where my gifts were definitely, honestly, like, they were idols in my life because I gave more attention and more focus and more intentionality to developing them and asking God to just bless it. And that was my way of including him than I did in allowing him to guide me through those things. It was just like, okay, God, bless my plan. And I love you. And I know your word, and help me along this journey. Right. And that was wrongly positioning those things. That was making those things an idol, or having built an altar. Right. And that's one of the things God told me this morning as I was in prayer time, and God dropped some significant things in my heart and my mind. And I was like, what do people do when something so significant happens spiritually and you want to mark it down? Right. You either make a covenant or you build an altar. And I said, God, today's the day. Like, I want to build an altar on some of the things that you told me and on some of the things that I'm asking you for. And he began to point out how many other altars that I had built, but I had built them for the sake of success. I had built them for the sake of, trying to sway people's perception of situations. I had built them, based on what I was reaching for, trying to please or give the perception that I'm doing all of this. And here's the thing, I'm doing a lot of great things, but everybody can't see it. And in the season where God has literally like had me hit it, he's showing me how to be intentional about building my altars, because I think, I built some altars unintentionally. And he actually kind of pointed out to me, he's like, when someone builds an altar, he asked me this question. He said, why does someone build an altar? And I was like, to worship. He's like, exactly. And he's like, when does someone build an altar? I said, well, when they want to worship. And he said, why do you think they build an altar? I said, so, it's a place that they can continuously come back to. I said, but also when I think about it biblically, it was a place that for generations, people would come and acknowledge what happened there. He said, exactly. He said, that's legacy. When you build an altar, you're establishing basically legacy, right? And what you've built it on, whether it just be in your own heart, which are the things that you pass on generationally, is I touched on a little bit in my other episode, that you can pass on generationally, the things that are in your heart. And if you built it on the desire to have more money, you've built that altar in that way, and you begin to pursue it in that way, and you always begin to approach it in that way, then that's your form of worship. And you're going to keep coming back to it, to try to offer something up on it. And you're going to continue to do that. And so how you approach something, but is really the establishment of something and how you establish something that really matters. And this is just kind of the message that I want to put out there, because I've seen a lot of people who, like I said, who have gone away from home and come right back. And I really believe that the message is that God is just trying to say, I want to reestablish everything that you want. Right? But I want to establish it in me instead of in people pleasing, instead of in ideals, instead of, in the desire just for success or just in money. Like, let those not be the reasons that you're pursuing your purpose. Like, even if you're pursuing your purpose for the sake of being wealthy, if you're pursuing your purpose for the sake of just fulfilling your own desires, God is saying that's still selfish, and that's not centered on me, and it's not centered out of worship. It's centered out of self-centeredness. And so kind of being in a season and a time where I'm like, God has me in a place where I'm hidden and I'm recognizing that God is showing me intentional movements. And in this season and this time, I can either take advantage of it, or as I sometimes do, I get frustrated and I look at where I'm at and I just want to throw everything up in the air. I say, I'm not where I, would just like to be, and then when I do that, it negates everything that God has already done for me. And then I get a grip and I recognize, please, like there's no way I'm walking at the level that I'm walking in because of anything that I've done. Like I said, I'm the poster child for just, walking into doors and opportunities that, I definitely didn't earn. And it just so happened that someone decided to open the door, or it was God's timing. And here's the thing, I am prepared when I get to those places, bless the Lord, but there was nothing that I could have done to get me there, if that makes sense. And so I just want to encourage people, like, no matter where you are, be intentional about the reasons that you are building or doing whatever you're doing in this season of life, especially if you're someone who's kind of returned home, right? Because when God does give back to you and God does decide to establish something with you, he wants to be rooted on the right things. Because if not, eventually all false idols and worship and altars will be torn down, right? If it's not set up the right way. Or if it's not set up God's way, and that's the difference between God's plan, even if it is a good thing. So even if it's a good thing, but it's not God's plan, it's kind of God's way of saying, I didn't want you to get too far off in this just to have to tear it all down and then you not be able to rebuild, right? And so I've kind of hidden you, or I've kept you in this place and in this season so that you understand how to build intentionally. Because a lot of times we've built some things and we've built them unintentionally and we didn't know. And there are some things we have to go back and we have to tear down and we have to rebuild and we have to get understanding. He said, but this time I want you to do it intentionally. I don't want you to just go through life and feel like, oh, this good thing happened. It was random. No, God's saying, establish something here, but let it be worship to me, right? Establish it here and build on this, right? And in that I can be well pleased. And in that I can pour out my love on you and over whatever else is going on. And honestly, I just wanted to encourage some other people. I don't know where everyone else is or what everyone else is going through, but like I said, I recognize I could be somewhere else right now, but I thank God, honestly, that I'm here because I have been out of pocket before in the sense that I have not been where God wanted me to be physically, right? Like I've been living in another state and working multiple jobs and doing this. And if that's what we want to call independence and hustling and making it happen, y'all can keep it because God's favor wasn't on it. And that's not how I choose to live my life. That's not what I want. And so I rather be where the grace of God is and grow through that process and instead of being out there hustling, trying to make it work. And I am so beat up in the process, or I'm putting out more than I need to. But here's the thing. In this season, I'm also learning to rest in God and be like, okay, God got me. God got me. Like, it doesn't matter what everybody else perceives. Because here's the thing, y'all. When I come out, Ooh. I'm telling you. And my testimony honestly can be all glory to God. And I don't know what everybody's, faith is or where you're at, but this is my encouragement. Anything that you are building and that you are establishing right now, be intentional about the ground that you're building it on, and realize that whether you are saved or not, it's worship to something, right? Anything that you give time and adoration to is worship. So if it's your gifts, it's your talent, if your success, if your smarts, if your job, whatever it is, if you give time and adoration to it, you pour into it, is worship. And eventually, if that's what you were building your stuff on, you better hope it can keep you up. And I have to be honest, guys, this episode is for me. Like, I hope it blesses somebody else. And I want to encourage other people out there by sharing where I'm at and what God is doing in me and for me. But quite honestly, this was just another form of marking down what God is doing in me and building my altar, right? Because part of building an altar is also establishing something, that people can come to and also worship. It's kind of like I posted something on social media. I posted it on my personal page a while back, but I posted it again today. Today is June 22nd, 2020. June. No, we're in July. July 22nd, 2020. And I posted something and it really just honestly, it came out of time of worship and realizing that my gifts and my talents and what I do, those are my gifts to God. And so the post said, God, let me create something in the earth that is so pleasing unto you that when other people need to draw close to you, they would use it too. And God brought that back to my remembrance today. And I was like, God, that's an altar. Like, I want to establish a place or something and bring something so great into the earth that even when other people need to draw close to you, that this would be a place that they could come and they could find what it is they're looking for. They could use it too to get to that secret place. They could use this too to get to success. And God, I have to build that on worship to you. This is built out of my worship and my desire to please you. And honestly, I want that to be my gift to the world. I want that to be my legacy, right? And so honestly, like I said, this episode was for me. And it was just to mark down a day that I'm saying, God, your will be done. God's plan in my life and for my life. And so, like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope you got some good stuff out of it. But on this one's for me. But I love you guys. I appreciate you guys for listening. And I hope you enjoyed, and tune in next time. Bye.
God's plan.